All right, I'm going to show you how to make my favorite holiday recipe, my favorite Christmas recipe, and that's because it's my Mimi's recipe. My Mimi would make this every Christmas, and she would give it out to people in tins, and they would love it, and I would love it too when she made it. So there would always be plenty around for me to sneak. But this is guaranteed to be your favorite and your friend's favorite, so I encourage you to try this. All you need is a pound of butter. So you need a pound of butter. You need 2 cups of sugar, 2 cups of sugar, of course, some vanilla. You need just a little bit of dark Karo syrup, just 2 teaspoons of this. And you need 8 Hershey's bars, 8 Hershey's milk chocolate, just standard milk chocolate flavor. And the topping, which is kind of the key ingredient too, is pecans. The best quality pecans you can get will make the toffee taste the best. So this is English toffee. I get these from Texas. I'm a little biased because I'm from Texas, but anywhere in the South, you should be able to find good pecans. And if you're on the West Coast, you can still find them. All right, and another key ingredient too is you cannot make the candy in a stainless steel pan, and you cannot make them make the candy in a non-stick pan. Don't use that. You want to use like an aluminum clad pot or something for making candy. And you also, of course, then need a candy thermometer that measures up to 300, 400 degrees and has lines on it to tell you when the candy is done. All right, so those are your ingredients. Follow me into the kitchen and I'll show you how to make it. It's very easy. Okay, before we begin, there's a couple things I forgot to say. A major ingredient you need is 6 tablespoons of water. Doesn't seem like much, but it is important. You do need it. 6 tablespoons of water. It's going to boil off anyway, but you do need it. Also, the 4 cups of pecans that you have finely chopped, you need them separated into 2 cups and 2 cups. So 2 cups are going to go on top, but 2 cups are going to go in the mixture. So have those separated. And it's actually a good idea to have all this stuff measured out before you start, because you need to be ready to go with this recipe. There's no let me come back to it, or once you start this recipe, you need to stay on top of it the whole time. There's no walking away from it. So have everything ready to go and measured out and laid out for you for the most part. Another thing is too, when you're chopping the pecans, use a food processor like this, not like a blender or a grinder that's going to make it like a meal. You want it like really too fine. You want it like the size of a pebble or so. So maybe a little smaller than that, but it's okay. That's not the end of the world. But okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and melt the butter first. The whole pound of it. A pound is just 4 of these. When you buy butter, it comes in a box. It's a pound, so it's 4 of these. We're going to put those in the pot.
And then I'll turn my burner on. And basically, we're going to put this and the sugar in for a good majority. In the beginning of this recipe is melting the butter and cooking the sugar. Heating up the sugar along with water and some of that Karo syrup. That takes a little while. But the first step is melting this butter.
Okay, don't turn your burner on too hot or you'll burn the sugar or the butter, and once you burn it, you really mess the flavor up. So put the burner on like 3 or 4, not too hot. Okay. I'm going to let you see what it looks like. All right, so there's the butter melting. Also, the whole time you're doing this recipe, use a wooden spoon. Remember, we're not trying to use any stainless steel. It really messes up the candy. So you're going to be using wood. Remember, this pot is an aluminum clad pot. And so, in fact, I'm already going to turn my heat down just a little bit. I'm not trying to boil this butter. I'm just trying to melt it. Now, as it's melting, We're gonna go ahead, I've already got the sugar ready. Again, as many things as you can have ready to go, that's awesome. I've got my 2 cups of sugar ready to go, but we are gonna almost immediately, after we add the sugar, add the 6 tablespoons of water with 2 tablespoons of Karo. So to make it easy, you can add all the liquid at the same time by having all that liquid together already. So 2 tablespoons of Karo. This corn syrup is really thick, so instead of letting it, if you want it to go a little faster, you can just add kind of a big tablespoon, an overflowing one, and then you don't have to let this thing drain till every drop comes out. Okay, again, my butter is already starting to almost like boil, so I'm going to stir it a little bit, bring the heat down a tad. Okay, that's 2 tablespoons of Karo. With the dark Karo syrup, they sell light, which is clear, and they sell the dark. You want the dark. All right, so I'm going to keep this stirring just so it doesn't burn, but it's pretty much all melted. So at this point, I'm going to add my 2 cups of sugar. And then the 6 tablespoons of water with the 2 tablespoons of Karo that's right here. And again, I kind of added just a little bit more heaping tablespoons of Karo because it's so thick, instead of trying to get every little drop. By the time I'm done, I've got 2 tablespoons in there. All right, so I'm just gonna stir this around until it's all melted. You're gonna bring this to a boil. You're gonna bring this to a boil, and then you're gonna start using your candy thermometer. Now this candy thermometer is key to this recipe, it really is. It basically tells you at what temperature that you need to take the candy off the stove. So you can see here, let me turn it, sorry. You can see here that at softball stage, you're pretty much gonna have Laffy Taffy. Actually, softball would be, oh, what's a good candy that would be like a softball? I can't think of one off the top of my head, but maybe like a Tootsie Roll. But a Tootsie Roll can be kind of hard too, once the moisture's gone out, right? So in essence, let me make a scientific observation here, or statement. What we're doing is we're boiling the water off, and as we boil the water off, it's just the candy is going to be harder and harder as it cools. The more moisture you leave in the candy, the softer it'll be. So you go from softball to hardball to finally soft crack, which would be kind of like a maybe like an airhead, but an airhead might be kind of like actually a softball. I take that back. I'm thinking of what are those? Oh, I can't think of what kind of candy would be a soft crack. But what that means is that it wouldn't be chewy. It would actually crack. Like you would be able to like break it in your mouth, but it would be soft enough that you could probably do that kind of like right away. Hard crack candy is most popular, like a Jolly Rancher or anything like that. It's going to have like a, it's almost going to break like glass pretty much. And that's kind of what we want. We want a hard crack, which you can see is about 305 Fahrenheit. So a little over 300, which is about 305 degrees Fahrenheit, right there where it says hard crack. When the temperature gets to that point, when this blue line gets up there, you're gonna be good to go. That's when we can take it off and we're gonna pour it in this pan, lay the chocolate on top, lay the pecans, and just let it cool. And it is amazing when it's done. Now let me make a couple other observations here. So water boils at 212. So this line's actually gonna pretty quickly get to 212. It doesn't take that long to get to that point where you're starting to boil water. And this thing will just slowly boil. You don't want to heat this thing up too fast. Okay, it takes a little time, so be patient. Just let it sit here and boil. You do not want it to burn or you're gonna ruin the flavor. So, but again, you're gonna get it to 212 pretty quick. All right, and you're going to see it stay here for a long time while the energy is boiling off the water, because water doesn't get any hotter than 212. So as long as the water is in there and it's boiling, it's going to stay at 212. Once all the water's gone, or most of the water's gone, the temperature will actually start to go up and up and up and up. And there's a couple of spots in here too, I can't remember where the temperature just kind of seems to stay there like forever. It just seems like it never wants to climb anymore. But you just have to keep being patient and stirring slowly. You don't want the sugar to stick on the side of the pan. You want to keep going around the pan just to make sure that you don't have any like crystals forming, because if that happens, a bunch of the sugar crystallize around that and you'll kind of ruin your candy as well. You'll just have kind of like that real gritty crystalline sugar that's not the texture you want. You want all of the sugar to be liquid when you pour it, and any small crystals can mess that up. Any little granules of sugar that will crystallize will be like little seed crystals, and it'll really just ruin the candy. So you want all the sugar crystals to cool off at the same time. It's the art and science of candy. You may not get this right the first time, and I didn't get it right the first time either. And I'm just hoping it goes right again this time. You know, it's not that easy to do. But this candy thermometer is actually really cheap. They're not expensive. You can find these at the dollar store. So, all right. Well, while this is heating up, I'm going to take a break. I'm not going to be sitting here filming this for an hour and a half. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't take an hour and a half. I'm just exaggerating. But I'm not going to sit here and film this while this boils. Even if I fast forward it, I just don't have the memory in my iPad to sit here and film that and then fast forward. So I'm going to stop it now, and then I'll just keep turning on the camera as the temperature kind of climbs. But already at this point, now that those four things have melted, the butter, the sugar, the water, and the Karo and all that stuff's kind of blended together, it's actually a really interesting consistency. And you can already start to see on the edges there, the water's boiling. So we're already bringing this to a boil. So in fact, I don't even need to really wait. Let me just make sure that this thing is focused so you can see better. I know you can see it, but I want it to have good focus. And why not get it a little bit closer too? Sorry, I'm a one-man show for this. Okay. Now listen. You hear it doesn't sound like boiling water, it sounds like boiling candy. I really don't know other way to describe that. It sounds sticky. It sounds just like the sound of making candy. That's a good sound. It's also a really good smell. Wish you were here to smell it. But it's okay, if you're gonna make it, you'll smell it. Now, you're gonna wanna stir it. You do not want it to boil over, so this size pan is kind of pushing the limits, but I've made it before, so I know that it works. But I do remember that it kind of gets to the brim here like this. All right. Now it's going to sit there and do that for, like I said, a long time. And at this point, you can already go ahead and stick your thermometer in. And there's a little clip on it that will hold it. It should, at least. Like right now, oh, yeah, it's already at 212. You can see there, well, you can't quite because it's kind of foggy. But you can kind of see the blue line there, yeah, just above the 200. So we are at 212, and it'll stay there again for a little while, boiling off that water. Now, I've got my burner at 2, actually. I got a gas stove, so it gets pretty hot. and I've got the setting at 2. Like, it's not that hot. Again, you don't want to burn this. It's okay to see some yellow like this, golden yellow. It's kind of what you want, almost the color of the butter. But you don't want like brown. If you start seeing brown, it's because you're doing too much caramelization. And I just did a foul too, by the way. You see how I set my wooden spoon on the pan? I'm gonna end up pouring the candy eventually on the pan. Well, this right here will crystallize. It'll already start to get kind of gritty and, you know, start to solidify, and that would act like a seed crystal, and all the sugar would crystallize around that. So that was a bad idea. I need to actually clean that up. So in fact, I'm gonna do that and we'll come back. All right, we're back, and this actually hasn't really been on there that long, and it's already at like 275, which is like the soft 200. See, it's above the 250, not quite to the 300, and you can see the line just above that blue line with the words there. I know you can't see because it's kind of foggy on the lens of the thermometer, but it says soft crack. So the soft crack is at about 275. We're at like 260, maybe 270. But again, we want to be at 305. 300 won't cut it, but 305. Another thing I forgot to mention is, you see how we're boiling off all the water and everything? Well, once we do that, any moisture in the air is actually really going to want to try to get into the sugar too as it cools. And you know, as you leave candy out, it absorbs moisture from the air, and it'll get soft. And so basically, you really want to do this on a day that's not humid. If there's any humidity, you actually have to boil it to higher than 305. It's a trick. Now, I've never got that to work. My grandma's never got that to work, but apparently it does work. So if that does for you, leave a comment. If you're in California like me right now and it's windy, I don't think there's any humidity right now, so it should be easy for me. But again, I think it likes to hang out there. So while that's doing that, I wanted to show you another thing you can do to get ready, and that is getting your Hershey's ready for when it's time to go. Because as soon as the candy's done, you're gonna pour it into a pan. Well, as soon as it gets to 305, you're gonna take it off. You're gonna pour 2 cups of pecans in the candy and a tablespoon of vanilla and stir that around for just a second. But then that gets poured into a pan, and then it's gonna be really hot. It's 305 degrees. And as it's cooling off, you still wanna act quick. You need to get this Hershey's on there, and it'll melt. You don't have to melt this first. You just stick the little pieces on top of the candy sporadically, and they'll melt. But you want that to already be ready to go. So just basically open all these packages and have them ready to go. And then what you'll do, you'll see, is you break them like this. You can even put them 2 down like that, and then put 2 there, like that. Just spread them out, because it's all going to melt anyway on top of that candy. But you'll spread those out. And so if you already have these at least open, that's what me and my grandma usually do, is we'll just at least have these open so that you're not spending time opening these packages, and you have them all open like this, ready to just pull out. All right. Okay, here it is. It is ready. Let me get my vanilla. And it's 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Do not overdo this vanilla. You know how normally you can just, a little extra vanilla because I like the flavor of vanilla? You can't do that. You need 1 tablespoon, no more, no less, because the extra water in the vanilla will totally mess up the recipe. Okay, so you got the vanilla in there. And then you want the 2 cups of pecans. You can see the water boiling off in that vanilla, right? So then you want your 2 cups of pecans. Stir that around just a little bit. And then you're going to pour this onto cookie sheet. Don't grease the cookie sheet. There's plenty of grease in the butter. Okay. Oh, that smells so good. Oh man. Okay, now that's really hot. Be careful. Don't lick that. Don't try to lick the spoon or anything like that. So let that kind of settle. You want it to be fairly level. So I'm just going to tilt it. Let me tell you, this did not take that long, so I'm a little worried. Seems like it takes longer normally, but that happened a little quick. I got to like 3:10, to be honest with you. I didn't show you, but it was like 3:10, 3:15. Hopefully it wasn't too much, but we'll see. So now that you got it all level, you're just going to throw these on there. Again, just space them out the best you can. They will naturally all melt together and gravity will do its thing. So if you can, do this on a flat surface. That would be key as well. Obvious, right? It's probably not good to do all 3 chunks like that. I might want to do them individually if you can. So remember, I'm using a total of like 6 Hershey bars to do this. Now, this is kind of funny. My grandma said back in the day, you know, the Hershey's would actually melt a lot better, and it would just melt. Like you would just see it do its thing and it would be fine. But she said like the manufacturers started maybe possibly doing something different with the chocolate recipe. Maybe a better emulsifier or something that helped the consistency, and that she said it would like melt, but yet you would then need to kind of like just spread it, because it would, see, like you can tell it doesn't look like it's melting, huh? But watch, when I take a spoon or like a spatula, like a silicone spatula, and just kind of go across it, you'll see that all this is melting. I made a batch last year and it really wasn't that good because, again, I think it was because of the humidity. And it was all like just kind of gritty. It was almost like eating sugar. But you know what? I still ate that whole batch. Can't tell you how many times I came in the middle of the night and had a piece of toffee in the middle of the night that probably was not good. If you make this, make sure you have someone to give it to, because if you have this sitting around your house, you will gain some weight. And your body may not like all that sugar. Oh, I got one more. I don't know if I have room for this. Mimi, did you write that recipe down right for me? Yeah, I think she did. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh wait, I think I used more than 6. That's what it was. Okay, I've got a little bit of extra chocolate here, but I think that'll work. That's fine. Wash my hands. Yeah, I was about to use 8. So I used about 7.5. Okay, again, if you just go like that, it's all melted. So just kind of spread it around. Don't push too hard. Just give yourself a nice consistent chocolate layer on top. And as soon as you're done, you've got a nice kind of like almost like a chocolate glue. It's essentially what this is going to be. It's going to be like a chocolate film that's going to be like a glue. You're going to pour the other 2 cups of pecans on top. And those pecans will just kind of fall into that chocolate, creating kind of a mixture. And then the whole thing will cool, and you'll have basically the candy at the bottom will be real hard, but the top will just be like soft pecans that don't fall off. You know, they're like held in place by the melted chocolate. And so you won't want this to be out in the sun or too hot, like when it's all said and done and you're giving it to somebody, because the chocolate part of it would melt, could melt. And actually, every time you eat a piece, there's always some chocolate on your hands. So that's okay. And I can already tell the candy below is already starting to harden or set. Now to let this set, just leave it out. Don't put it in the refrigerator, don't try to speed it up or do anything fancy, just leave it out. And then the next day, you just take a knife and you just keep hitting it, and it'll crack just randomly, and so you'll have different size pieces, and it kind of makes it kind of cool. And you put those pieces in like a tin, like a Christmas tin, as a gift. Okay, now the last part is these good old southern pecans. You're just gonna, if you're making them for someone else, probably don't use your hand, but I want to make sure I spread them right. And I'm making this for me and Kelsey, so I'm using my hand. So you see what I'm doing there? Put a little bit everywhere first, so you make sure you kind of covered all the bases, and then if you have some holes that you see look a little thin, go and fill those. But don't try to just make it perfect all the way from one side to the other. Try to get everything lightly first and then go back and what I actually did is I ground it up a little bit more than 4 cups just in case, so you can see it. And I like pecans, so I got a little bit more than 4 cups, so I'm gonna use my leftovers here. It's not much, it's just maybe half a cup. I probably won't use all this right now, but okay, there you have it, folks. That is English toffee, and it is the best stuff in the world. I can't wait to taste this tomorrow. We'll see how it turns out. Stay tuned. That's going to be the next part of this video.